great to be here. So I really like what EOPA is doing, and especially the lawmakers from across the country. It's really good to join you because, as you know, the UN Secretary General called out Code Red for humanity as the UN IPC reported that nations must reduce their carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 in order to have a chance to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Climate change is happening now around the world, and people in all countries are suffering. The last 7 years were the year's hottest on record. People are dying from heat waves, drought, extreme storms, and flooding. The US during last year experienced 20 weather events exceeding $20 billion in direct costs, with another $145 billion in economic damages. The losses from extreme weather will only grow higher and higher. To those who say, we can't afford the cost of investing in a clean energy economy, I join the economists who respond, and all economists will say this: we cannot afford business as usual. The Build Back Better Act provides a historic $555 billion package of tax credits, grants, and other policies aimed at reducing emissions and boosting clean energy. This year, carbon emissions are rising, not falling, in the US and around the world. The Build Back Better Act is an excellent investment to meet the US goal of reducing emissions 50% under 205 levels by 2030, as science demands. The climate action is much more affordable than climate inaction. Here's the business case. New research shows that Build Back Better's clean energy tax credit would generate very high returns on investment, up to 400%, empowering the US energy sector to lead the clean energy revolution to low carbon manufacturing and zero emission transportation. Leading companies are jointly urging decisive congressional action on the Build Back Better Act to make the United States more competitive in a low carbon global economy. Every day we delay, the cost of inaction increases. Let me repeat, clean energy investments are generating very high returns. Here's the economics case. By 2030, climate change will be costing the US economy around 1.2% of GDP per year. That's $240 billion annually. Costs jump to 1.8% of GDP by 2050. And these costs don't even include health costs. The cost to our health from fossil fuel generated air pollution and climate change surpasses $820 billion in health costs each year. So the cost of inaction from climate is extremely high. It's $820 billion in health costs, another $165 billion in weather costs and economic damages, and a loss of $240 billion in GDP. That's $1.2 trillion with inaction. So the cost of action is much lower, and plus it creates a world for future generations. The Build Back Better will not add to inflation or the deficit. Instead, inaction will cause reductions in economic growth, lower productivity, lower corporate earnings, and higher inflation. The Build Back Better will support economic growth that provides middle class with good, high-paying jobs and creates a more just and sustainable economy. That's why it's called Build Back Better. Right now, the US is subsidizing fossil fuels with grants and tax breaks. The public is helping pay for extraction and refining of petrochemical and coal products with bad air, extreme weather, and health problems, along with their own tax money to fossil fuels. This must stop. Today, elected officials are here to promote the political solution. President Biden must declare a climate emergency and set up a plan to phase out fossil fuels. Congress must pass the Build Back Better Act to build a low carbon and equitable economy with good union jobs. To sum up, Build Back Better Act is the most significant investment in climate and environmental justice in history. It will meet the climate test by putting our nation on a clear path to cut pollution in half by 2030, create millions of good paying jobs, and invest in environmental justice And also, it will reduce energy bills by $500 a year for working families across the country. I urge you to join together to demand the Senate pass the Build Back Better Act. We want our legacy to be a habitable planet for our children and our grandchildren. The Build Back Better Act is a truly wise Valentine gift of love. Thank you for caring for each other and the planet.